Another thing that's kind of important to an awful lot of people in New London, and certainly is in the papers a lot lately, is the whole education establishment here in New London. And what I was kind of interested in is what are your thoughts about education, and what do you think we need to do going forward?
Well, I think the real issue to me lately is knowing how many administrators we've had in a couple of buildings just kind of either leave for whatever reason or be temporaries and then kind of go on. There has to be a better consistent approach in terms of the administrative level. And I guess we have to evaluate the talent a little better in terms of, are these people going to stay for longer than 5 years? Because if you're going to have a plan in place for 5 years, you would hope those people who established that plan and vetted that plan and believe in it will be there to administer it. So I think that part of it is really big, and I don't know that we've taken the time to really evaluate the people that we're putting in some of those places. Now, under the new charter, the mayor will be a ex officio member of the Board of Ed. I plan on attending, if I'm so lucky to be the mayor of this great city, to be at every meeting and to bring forth initiatives that I think really need, from a planning perspective, really need to take hold in the Board of Ed and in education in terms of New London. I think that there is a cloud in terms of who's directing the policy, whether it be the superintendent or the Board of Ed. And there doesn't seem to be some clear delineation of jobs here or roles. And I think there has to be better defined. I think, certainly you want an individual who's making as much as a superintendent would make to provide you with his expertise, but I think the board also should be charged with the fact that they lay out game plans and initiatives that they want to reach. And I don't know that that's been done clearly. And I certainly do think that working better with the teachers, I know, talking to many of them, that there's, issues in each school. Discipline has been a problem. I know there was a report last night that talked about discipline being down. And I think, there has to be a better understanding of what we're going to accept in the classroom in terms of behavior, and what we're going to do to combat some of the problems. And I think, looking at our community as to where our kids are coming from, what households they're coming from, whether or not they've been issues revolving around the family. I don't know if the family dynamic is taken into account. When I went to school years ago, you expect some issues of disagreement. There's so many kids in one school, there's going to be disagreements, and there's going to be, fights of some kind. Now we're rising to the level of greater things, and I don't know that, when we suspend an individual or we put them in an all-day, I don't know if it's incarceration is a good word, but your timeout or so. Not speaking of a parent of a 2-year-old. I don't know that we look at the family dynamic and understand what the individual student's going through, and trying to help them, whether they're just having a bad day or they're having issues at home that are not being addressed. And that's what I think, not only the guidance counselors, but some of the other individuals that are there within the school system need to kind of get a handle on. And I don't know if we necessarily need, and the position is escaping me at the time, but individuals who, not guidance counselors,
deans.
No, but individuals who are there to help the behavioral issues, and I think that's really something that I think we need to focus on, because I know, we have a lunch, a breakfast program now. We're doing a supper program in some of the schools, based upon some of the concerns of where some of these kids are the homes, that they're not being provided, or the fact that individuals are are working so many different jobs that the parents are not there, and they're not necessarily being fed. So I also think we need to look at the dollars that we're spending. We're spending $40 million. That's what you see in the budget. There's another $10 million and that we don't even talk about that's being spent, and how that's being spent, and how that's being leveraged. A lot of that $10 million are grants. And we have a lot. There was a consultant report that was on last night's agenda. And I don't know if all those consultants tie in together in terms of what they're focusing in on. So I think so. When you start, it's your talent base in terms of administrators, what the programs are that are bringing up the math and the reading scores, and what are those doing in terms of increasing those scores, and then looking at the family and the dynamic with the students that are underachieving.
Yeah, and I know that your wife Doris teaches in the system, and you probably get a lot of feedback from her.
I do,
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah, I have a daughter that teaches high school in another area, and what she constantly tells me is that the discipline is the most difficult thing. She spends half her time in the classroom just trying to take care of discipline issues when in fact she'd like to be teaching. So,
Right.
so it's tough, and different school systems, but the administrators really need to make sure the teachers are supported, particularly in the area of discipline. The teacher should be able to get a student that's not performing, get him out of the classroom, and then they let him pay his dues for the behavior so that he adjusts it. So.
And I think, I couldn't think of social workers. I
Yeah.
think we have to evaluate the amount of the number of social workers that we have. I
Yeah.
know we've reduced them over time, and that dynamic there. And personally, I don't think the education department should be in the bureaucratic part of payroll. I really think we need to combine our finance departments, and we can talk a little bit about that under taxes and other things.
Yeah, I know you've been long have been an advocate of that, and I know you've had some real successes with that in the education area. With I think the Board of Ed, based on your initiative, has taken their health insurance and combined it with the city and saved what, $100,000 a year or something.
Oh, more than that. I mean,
Yeah.
well, the initial part was over 6, but that was between both. And certainly we were able to help them save on fuel costs. But I mean, that movement to self-insurance was a reason why we reduced taxes in the city of New London last year. Also, I believe it was a reason why they were able to not see the kind of devastating impacts that other systems saw with doing away with teachers. And I think that was very helpful for them. Also, I mean, the last 2 years we've had a zero in terms of amount of money that's coming from the city side for the school board. So that's hard to sustain without doing some savings, and that's what I think you have to look at. But I also think you have to really look at that $10 million, how we're utilizing it in terms of the programs and how those addressing the issues within the school system.
Yeah, and you just wonder how much of that really is being scrubbed by the Board of Education, because my fear would be that some of that money is so invisible that it could easily be handled strictly by the administration and the board really not know exactly what's happening. So that's a good point.
It's a big, when you're talking 50 million, the 40 plus the 10, that is a big nut to get your hands around, and it takes some years because you're trying to get into the dynamic of trying to understand the nuances of being on the board.